And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joining us now, Jenny Beth Martin from Tea Party Patriots. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so good to be with you, Kevin.
Good to have you with us, Jenny Beth. So your thoughts on the government shutdown. We love to tell the truth. We love to have people like you on that tell the truth. So your uncensored, unfiltered, objective view of the shutdown.
Well, I think that the president is standing up for border security, and he's made it very, very clear that he intends to get our border secure, or at least take more steps to secure the border, using this shutdown as leverage. And the Democrats don't even want to come to the table to negotiate. They would I think that their hatred for President Trump is clouding their judgment, clouding what's right for our country and border security, and clouding their judgment when it comes to what's right for these government employees who are affected by the partial government shutdown.
Indeed, and when we take a look at just the overall impact it's having, now we've got the FBI saying they're stocking shelves instead of catching the bad guys. Are real people hurting, or is this a lot of hyperbole, do you think?
Well, I am sure that there are people who are hurting. We know that there are people across this country who live paycheck to paycheck. And I know that banks and who have have extended mortgages and car loans and other types of loans and credit to these people are making accommodations for them. And even utility companies are, because they've already passed a bill saying they will get paid once the government reopens. But that means they may not have to pay all those bills, but they're not having money come in. So yes, I'm sure that they are hurting. The fact is the people along the border are also hurting. The 15,000 families of people who died of a heroin overdose in 2017 are also hurting. 90% of our heroin comes from the southern border into this country. What the president is suggesting and what he has proposed is a broad border security plan. It's not just about the wall. You can call it a wall, you can call it a fence, you can call it a barrier, whatever. It is money for that, but it's also to hire 750 more Border Patrol agents, 2,000 more law enforcement and support personnel, 52,000 beds to help with the influx of border crossers, medical supplies, infrastructure for the people who are crossing the border, and technology to detect narcotics and weapons as they come across the border. I just was on the border last week, actually twice. I flew from America into Mexico City and back out. Then I walked from south of San Diego into Tijuana and back into the country. And I can tell you, we need that technology, even in the secure checkpoints, and we need to secure the border in the places where it's not secure so that the Border Patrol has less area they have to manually patrol in any given hour.
Indeed. What do you make of the president and his speeches recently addressing the nation? Of course, it is a challenge when you have every major news outlet going full tilt negative against him.
It is a challenge when they're going against him. And when you see that at the end of last week, 2 different times there were major fake news stories that the media really just embarrassed themselves over. They jumped the gun. When it came to whatever the BuzzFeed article had reported, I was in and out of Mexico that day, so I know what happened, but I couldn't delve into all the details on this radio interview. And then also with those Catholic school kids, they're doing anything they can right now to paint the president in a negative light. They don't want the things that he is talking about and the sense that he makes when it comes to border security, when he talks about the angel families, the families who've lost family members because of crime committed by illegal immigrants. They don't want to pay attention to any of that, so they're doing anything at all, whether it's real or not even doing their proper research to figure out whether it's real or not, to paint him in a negative light, because they understand that what he's talking about will resonate when it gets through to the American people.
Jenny Beth Martin joining us from the Tea Party Patriots. Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. So could you give us your thoughts, just your impressions on being in Mexico for that brief time? How does how they live contrast to how we live?
Well, what I'd really like to talk about is about border security. The reason I travel this country 150,000 miles a year on airplanes. I am in and out of airports all the time. And when people say we don't, Senator Schumer said that walls are not what America is about. That is Nancy Pelosi has said, Speaker Pelosi has said it is immoral to have a border wall. It's the most absurd statements those are that I've ever heard. We have walls all over this country. We have walls that prevent us from getting onto airplanes. When you arrive back into the country on an airplane or from a cruise ship, you have to go through border security, and it's gated off and walled off before you're allowed to go in the rest of the country. And the most obvious thing is that when I went into Mexico City, I flew into Mexico City. I had to show my passport before I could even get on a plane to leave America. I get to Mexico City, go through their customs, have to show my passport, give all 10 fingerprints to Mexico before they will allow me to leave a walled off area in their country and walk around more freely within their country. To get back on the airplane, I had to go through customs, answer questions, show my passport more than one time, once to get through to the gate and another time to get on the plane. And then when I got off the plane back in America, again, I had to show my passport. I had to have my photograph taken. I also had to do fingerprints in America. So to say that this is immoral, countries do this. We check to see, we meaning countries, check to see who's coming into our country so we know, and we know what their purpose is in being here. And we should be doing that across the southern border. And the thing that I realized coming back from this trip, we've got the front door locked, like seaports and airports. We've got the back door locked in the places along the border, the southern border that have areas where you have to go through a checkpoint. And then we have windows that are left unlocked. I've been around this country. This was like my 8th trip to the border. We've done a documentary on the border. I've seen how easy it is to come into the country when there are no gates and walls and fences. And so it's like the front door and the back door are locked, but the windows and in the back down in the basement are unlocked, and people can just come right on in.
Jenny Beth, if people want more information on your group, what can they do?
They can go to teapartypatriots.org, click through on the border security banner. We've got daily action updates, a how-to guide to help you get more involved, and we've got lots of videos and a documentary to teach more about this issue. Indeed.
Let's get back to your group, the Tea Party Patriots. And could we go back to just how the media tried to stuff out the Tea Party movement, and where is the Tea Party today, ma'am?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, Kevin. We are going to be celebrating in just a few more weeks. We begin celebrating our 10th anniversary on February 20th, and we're going to have a year-long celebration. And despite the fact that we were targeted by the IRS, the same kind, not in the same intensity, but certainly the same kind of accusations that these Catholic high school students faced this past weekend, those kind of accusations were put on us, even though there wasn't evidence that we were doing anything wrong. That happened the weekend that Obamacare passed into law. And we've been attacked, we've been mocked, we've been maligned, we've been targeted, and yet we continue to stand for personal freedom, economic freedom, and a debt-free future.
Right, and just being in the well of the storm, what the press doesn't report is you, like the Covington kids, you've had your life threatened on social media, vulgarity, people come after you, and that's not reported. It amazes me how crazy the progressives are, and it doesn't get reported, and yet Facebook, Twitter, social media, more likely to censor you than people making threats against you.
That is exactly right. In fact, one of our team members who helped start this movement, and she works for Tea Party Patriots, she was sent to the Twitter gulag at one point and shut down. We were able to help get her back online. That was a few years ago. So the kind of censoring that they're doing or allowing their system to be manipulated to do has been going on for several years. But you're absolutely right. I've had death threats. I've had people say that my children would be better off euthanized. I've had, during the Kavanaugh hearings, some random person online saying that he hoped my daughter would be sexually assaulted so I would understand what it's like one day. I mean, horrible, terrible, awful things that people say online. And you just have to do all you can to not pay too much attention to that and focus on what you're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, it winds up being a ball that can really distract you, a shiny object that can distract you. But you also have to be very careful because you don't know if the threats are real. We had someone who shipped feces to our office, and one of our pregnant employees opened that. The things that have happened to us are disgusting, and yet we're not going to let that stop us. We're not going to be intimidated by the people who don't want us to help make sure that Americans are more free and that we have more economic freedom in our country.
Jenny Beth Martin, one more time at your website. We always want to support you and make sure that we get the truth out here.
TeaPartyPatriots.org. Again, that's TeaPartyPatriots.org.
Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again. Be careful on the border.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Beth Martin joining us. By the way, Kevin Miller in the morning here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Two big stories coming out of the Covington, Kentucky kids saga. The president has invited them to the White House. We'll tell you why that's a good thing. Also, we have the Covington kids speaking out. We'll tell you a little bit about that. And the president is continuing to work on his State of the Union. And many of you have asked me if we are going to have a State of the Union watch party. And we are. We are going to go back to Dave & Buster's. And I'll be giving you the number throughout the morning, but I'll give it to you coming up. We're going to be there watching the State of the Union and getting your reaction coming up Tuesday. And we will be back at Dave & Buster's. Now, again, it doesn't cost you anything to RSVP. We just need to know how many people are going to show up. I'll give you that number coming up for Dave & Buster's. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Living the dream. Thank you very much for joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So the number for Dave & Buster's, 208-901-3800. That's 208-901-3800. We will have our State of the Union party now. Hopefully it'll be Tuesday. Kevin McCarthy, the big man on the House, had this to say concerning Nancy Pelosi saying, Mr. President, don't come to my house.
Take politics out of this. Put the American public first. You were Speaker of the entire House. You're no longer the chair of the Democratic Party. It is time to govern. It's time to put the election over. It's time to put Americans first. Have the president come just as the Republican speakers and the Democratic speakers in the past have done.
The president's going to do what he's going to do. I'm going to be supportive of his efforts, and I think he's going to do the right thing, and I support what he's doing to open the government.
Now, a lot of people say the president should come to the border. The president should do it, at the Oval Office. Heck, the president could come here. Again, we're the only radio station, the only media outlet in the state openly inviting President Trump to come to Idaho. He could bring the White House here, just like Governor Otter, former Governor Otter, used to bring the state capitol to certain places. But listen to what Kevin McCarthy has said on 107.5 FM and 580 AM. Look, Nancy Pelosi, quit being the head of the Democratic Party and be the Speaker of the entire House. One more time, Kevin McCarthy.
Take politics out of this. Put the American public first. You were Speaker of the entire House. You're no longer the chair of the Democratic Party. It is time to govern. It's time to put the election over. It's time to put Americans first. Have the president come just as the Republican speakers and the Democratic speakers in the past have done.
Right. Why don't they just do that? Why don't they put the country first? Because, quite frankly, the country does not come first with them. The country does not come first. So, before it airs on the Today Show, Savannah Guthrie had a chance to talk to one of the Covington students. Let's take a listen to it right now on KIDO Talk Radio.
Sandman, the Kentucky student at the center of that viral video, says he wasn't disrespectful when he appeared to confront Native American veteran Nathan Phillips. He sat down exclusively with today's Savannah Guthrie.
Do you feel that you owe anybody an apology? Do you see your own fault in any way?
As far as standing there, I had every right to do so. My position is that I was not disrespectful to Mr. Phillips. I respect him. I'd like to talk to him. I mean, in hindsight, I wish we could have walked away and avoided the whole thing.
The Covington Catholic High School students, some wearing Make America Great Again hats, were in D.C. last week for the March for Life.
I was afraid. I felt threatened because when we were there and we were in front of them, they surrounded us.
But after more videos emerged, defenders of the students say there was a rush to judgment.
Do you think the students did anything wrong?
Nope.
A student whose parents didn't want his face shown told NBC affiliate WLWT his classmates were using their school chants, approved by chaperones, to drown out insults from another group of protesters, men identified as Black Hebrew Israelites. But the chants continued when Phillips entered the picture, saying he was trying to intervene.
There was 3 Native American people there. One of them was jumping up and down, so our guys started jumping up and down, clapping, we're dancing with him.
School chants should be in school, and this wasn't school.
Today, Native Americans protested in Covington, and even President Trump weighed in, calling the students symbols of fake news and how evil it can be. But Phillips says the students should accept responsibility for their actions.
The students should go through some kind of sensitivity training, cultural education of some kind.
Police here are on high alert after receiving threats against the students. The diocese had initially said they could face expulsion. Now it says a third-party investigation will begin this week. Lester?
All right, Gabe Gutierrez. Yeah, Lester, Gabe, and everybody else. Folks, this is not a radio show. This is a lifestyle. Here we are watchers on the wall. We defend the faith. We proudly back up these kids in Kentucky. This is what your family, your friends are up against when we're talking about traditional American values. Now, again, as a practicing Catholic, we don't give the Catholic Church a pass. As a follower of Christ, a sinner, we don't give anybody a pass, and we look in the mirror with humility, with empathy. And the fact that we have the Covington High School, a private Christian Catholic high school, initially rushing to judgment, initially they're going to expel these kids. What's the lesson here? That when you have a Native American or Indian coming up chanting in your face, you're to cower in fear? That you're to agree with Melissa Milano that wearing a Make America Great Again hat is the new hood from the Ku Klux Klan? That now they're going to have a third party investigate? This is not America. That you're going to have this, in my opinion, crazy, wacky, zany activist tell these kids that they need to have sensitivity training. That's what's wrong with our society today. There's too much sensitivity training. Too much sensitivity training. Who's the adult here? The 63-year-old. Not the kids. The kids, let me repeat myself, the kids did nothing wrong. And thank goodness that Donald Trump has looked things and put things in perspective and invited these kids to the White House. Do you think George Bush would have had the guts to do that? No. George Bush the first, maybe the Gipper. These kids did nothing wrong. They should be praised for their restraint. And yet here you have Mr. Phillips lecturing them. It's crazy, the world that we live in today.
Defenders of the students say there was a rush to judgment.
Do you think the students did anything wrong?
Nope.
A student whose parents didn't want his face shown told NBC affiliate WLWT his classmates were using their school chants, approved by chaperones, to drown out insults from another group of protesters, men identified as Black Hebrew Israel.
Another group of protesters. The kids were there minding their own business, not protesting anything. Coming up, your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Remember, coming up Tuesday, we will have the State of the Union Watch Party. You can call Dave & Buster's to reserve your seat now, 208-901-3800, 208-901-3800. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. That's 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
KIDO Talk Radio time is 6:35. Anxious to hear from our friends at Fox News. More anxious to hear from you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Concerning the government shutdown, in addition to that, the Covington boys maligned. Everybody's after them. And one congressman, if you caught our Miller's Minute yesterday, one congressman calling the president the Grand Wizard. What is up with that, man? We will talk a little bit about those stories and more at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, but I want to make sure I get this right. Eben Brown joining us from Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Eben.
Good morning. Is this Simon Conway?
You know, I'd have to talk with a little, right? I'd have to talk with a little English accent, but very good, sir. Very good. Let's talk a little bit about food. Work food often impacts health negatively. Not everybody gets to have that fabulous lifestyle of all that fresh fruit y'all have down in Florida.
Oh, yes, of course. So this is a study that's published now in a medical journal. It's from the CDC. But it's saying that all too often people are essentially pigging out at work because their employer trying to do the right thing, of course, is supplying what is essentially junk food. And for the most part, it's salty snacks high in calories, those kinds of things, often found in vending machines, sodas and whatnot. It's stuff that's, it's cheap to buy, cheap to stock. It doesn't go bad. It can sit in a vending machine for a long time. You don't have to worry about it spoiling or anything. And, of course, people take advantage of that at work quite often. And usually in one sitting, they're getting about 1,200 calories, which is a lot of calories. I myself am on a diet. I'm supposed to keep to 1,800 calories a day, and a lot of these folks are getting 1,200 calories in a sitting. So what happens there? We get a bunch of overweight employees contributing to the ongoing obesity issues that we have in this nation. Obesity, of course, leads to other heart problems, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, all that other kind of stuff, and that's this could be one of the contributing factors.
Indeed, to combat the growing obesity problem, you now have calorie counts on everything that we look at restaurants and such. I'm wondering if vending machines are next.
Well, the vending machine itself probably wouldn't have calorie counting on it, but if the product that you buy from the vending machine does, and if it's something that it's your favorite, like that specific bag of chips or pretzels or whatever, you should familiarize yourself. But the calorie count of that product isn't going to change from day to day, so you would know how many calories you would get by eating that whole bag, and you factor that into your diet. And the other way to avoid that, of course, is to not eat that stuff out of the vending machine so much. Once in a while is fine, perhaps, but maybe bring some snacks with you that are fresh fruit or vegetables, and you won't have as much of an issue in the health problems that result from eating these snacks way too often.
Eben, we always appreciate you. You have a great day, sir.
You got it. Take care.
All right, Eben Brown joining us. Let's get to Hank. Hank, thanks for your patience. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Hank.
Good morning. True bigots are, by definition, are people who rush to judgment. I mean, mainstream media, if you want to look at an example of bigots, it's NBC, CNBC, CNN. These are the true bigots. what amazes me, like your Congressman Jeffries there, the difference is that he's black and he's basically railing stereotypes about whites and the Grand Wizard and stuff. I mean, you could have turned an era later in the Democratic Party back about 60 or 70 years ago, and you would have had Cotton Ed Smith railing about blacks. You could have had Bill Bull in Mississippi, or you could have had Rankin, the congressman from Mississippi, or you could have had Vanderman from another prize winner or something, or for that matter, Hal Heflin's father, Tom Heflin, who was what you call an invader. So this is the Democratic Party. They may have changed their colors, but the essence, it's the same old Democrat Party. The and it's interesting. The biggest race baiters in the old days were also the biggest supporters of the New Deal. The more conservative Southerners, although they did not engage to such a degree of the race baiting, but the more liberal ones among them were the biggest race baiters. I mean, you can't find anybody who was more staunch New Deal and FDR than Rankin in Mississippi. I mean, so it seems to be that the liberals pride themselves of being fair-minded and stuff, and yet the biggest bigots are themselves. I mean, this is what amazes me about this group. And as far as sensitivity training, that man from the Black Israelis should be half sensitivity training, I would think. Running around calling these crackers and all this other, a bunch of kids and treating them like that. I think he needs a dose of sensitivity training. And one more remark before I get off the air. I don't think as far as Pelosi, I mean, basically we've got with the leadership of the Democrats, sleazy and dopey. I mean, sleazy Schumer and dopey Pelosi. I mean, it's all about party and all about power. It has nothing to do with country. And I think that we're in bad shape. And the scary thing about it is, they could very well win the next election and take all three. We'll really be in a bad fix of these people.
Hank, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, this is a treat. Pat from Middleton joining us now on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Playboy.
Good morning to the big kahuna, the bright red apple from Hawaii. I love that picture you showed of yourself. I don't know what you were doing, but you didn't look like you looked like you were sizzling hot from the sun. And I felt your pain a little bit.
Well, I so appreciate that, Pat. You seem to love my pain.
Well, it comes at my expense, because I have to see it. As far as the Covington boys go, I saw that first meme posted where it was a picture and a little bit of a story, and it showed that the kids were the ones causing the problem, and yet that picture even indicated that the kid wasn't even doing anything. He wasn't even shouting back at the man. He had a smirk on his face, and it was probably because he was kind of surprised that this old man has singled him out, and he's pounding his drum right in his face, and he's not even sure what to make of it. And it just surprised me. But what really surprises me more is the condescending tone of Savannah Guthrie and the, don't you think you should take some responsibility? I mean, he's a 16-year-old kid, and she's grilling him as if he was in a confessional. It was ridiculous. It was sad. And then hearing all the different tweets from people that had jumped to judgment and now we're backtracking and apologizing. Why didn't they just take the time and just do? All I did was do a little bit more video search on Facebook and a little news search, and I found more footage right away. And I didn't have to jump on anybody because I automatically knew that these kids were absolutely in the right. And let me tell you, in my day, someone had gotten in my face and was yelling at me and pounding a drum, I would have popped him. I mean, I just would have. You would
have popped him.
I would have hauled off and smacked him in the face. He got in my face like that. That's intimidation. And this guy's an adult, and he's talking to a 16-year-old kid, and That kid had so much more restraint. It was impressive. It was very impressive to see that kid just stand there and let the guy yell at him and pound his drum right in his face for 20 minutes. And talk about keeping chants in the classroom, then he should keep his pounding of his drum and his chant in his house, in his bedroom.
Well, clearly he's a liar when he says that he was intimidated. Yeah, and you know, the idea of going after these kids, and Pat, you've hit the nail on the head. They're kids. And one thing that I've learned by doing endless school broadcasts, they're kids. You know, Steve Harvey does a great job because he understands they're kids. So is it really worth putting a notch on your career to try and humiliate somebody's kid? Is it really worth it that way? No.
When if you ever, as an adult, if you have any kind of conscience at all, you ever have any kind of self-esteem or self-worth, you humiliate a kid. What do they tell you never to do? Argue with a 2-year-old? I mean, you're a fool for arguing with a 2-year-old, and you're even more of an embarrassment to human debris. You're a terrible person to sit there and try to intimidate someone that doesn't even pay his own bills, can't even probably drive yet, needs a chaperone, wouldn't be allowed to walk around the city.
And by the way, we're talking about the latest on the Covington High School kids, 580-5436, 580-KID if you're just tuning in. But what do you make of the school not backing up the kids, and now they're going to have a third party investigate? Look, the evidence is there. These kids should be praised, not ripped.
Well, you know, the diocese and the school are an absolute embarrassment, because what are we taught as Catholics is not to rush to judgment, to find the empathy in the person. Either party, they should have found the empathy and said, okay, what was the motive? What was the reasoning? What was going on? Let's see the whole story. They should have took a seat back and said, let's get all the information before we say anything. But they were so concerned about the optics of the whole event, just like Lady Gaga criticizing Mike Pence's wife for teaching at a Christian school. Okay, and then they didn't back down. I'm really glad they didn't back down and kowtow to that public pressure. It's ridiculous. It's sad. And I will say the kids knew they would get some feedback by wearing those hats, but I'm proud they did.
And we're proud of you. Now, we've got a lot of other people calling in, not like the old days when it was just you, Russell from CUNA, and other people. But
well, I am heading into my radio show, so I got to get ready for myself. So
we'll be tuning in.
I'll talk to you later. Got to get that dig in, yeah.
Thank you, Pat.
Love you, brother.
Love you. Our great friend Pat from Middleton. Let's go to Brian in Nampa. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
I just have to give an amen to Hank. Wow, he drilled it. Let's do a little more diversity training. If you're a black Israeli and you're out there swearing at Catholic white kids and calling them crackers, you need a massive amount of diversity training. That's ridiculous. And you're right, Kevin, you drilled it. This Indian guy is a liar. You know, Kevin, I was thinking about this all day yesterday because I didn't sleep good. Can you hear me okay?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
You know, we talk about the First and Second Amendment. Let me give you an example. I walked outside with my AR-15, and I started to randomly point it at people. If I lived through that and didn't get shot, the cops would show up. And then if I was intelligent enough not to point it at the cops, I might live through that, and I would get hauled off to jail for using a deadly weapon, correct?
Yes.
So who's holding the media accountable for misusing the First Amendment? They are taking this guy who's obviously a liar, not reporting the whole story, and basically going around with the First Amendment, pointing it at these kids and saying, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong. That's abuse. And I hope the American people wake up to this. And I hope our officials, top and down, wake up and realize that there are people that are willing to abuse your children to get their ideology or their religion across. Again, I'm going to quote Jordan Peterson, a psychologist, a doctorate in it. If you believe something and you dedicate your life to that, that's your religion. Let's use it on global warming. Al Gore gets up there like he's the prophet of global warming. And then what do? Is they come and they try to come in government and force it down our throats. It's their religion. Now, if I got up and said, hey, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm going to go in the government and force you to live my religion, they would have a fit. But they can take their ideology and their false gods and their false prophets and their false religion and abuse us with it. It's not right. I'm standing with these kids. Your last caller was right. They showed more control than I would have. If I would have had, I can trace my lineage back to Adam through Cain. But I'm predominantly white. If I would have had some black Israelis out there calling me a cracker and swearing at me, and then this guy comes up and gets in my face, I'm not sure what I would have done, Kevin. They should get an award.
Great call, Brian. Thank you. God bless.
You bet.
You take care. Thank you, Brian. Ron Paul Jim with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Ron Paul Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, this is demonstrating the what I think is dates back to when the Rothschilds created a plan to take over the planet through financial control, and one of the aspects of that was to control the media. They wanted to control the narrative, to steer things in the direction that would enable them to empower themselves. You know, this. You ever heard the phrase "ordo ab chaos"? It means, order through chaos, and this is, another way of controlling people, controlling the masses by, this soft tyranny, which actually is, without, they're not violent, but the threat of violence is definitely there. People are scared because they never dealt with people that don't want to just debate ideas. These people just want to shout you out and make you look bad. And, right now the left controls the media. They control the internet. They, can edit and splice out and, do things that are just completely unethical, and will get away with it because, we do have something, called liberty, and they hide behind the Constitution when it serves their purpose. When it's, but rightful liberty is, as Jefferson said, was when, ends where it treads on somebody else's. Those people definitely were, exercising their right of true liberty until they trend on somebody else's, and those kids were actually the victims of their liberty, their rights were being trampled on. But, the solution to this, I can't say it's an easy one, because the left always seeks to get more government. That's the solution. That's the root of everything that they want. They're going to shout for the rights of one group while taking the rights away from everyone. That's always what happens, and both sides do this. Both sides never relinquish the power that they've obtained. And right now, I think Trump would rescind a lot of government were it not for the ones on the right preventing him from doing it, because they're just as much establishment as the left. So, I would like to see, for example, where they were talking about putting federal lands back under state control. That flies in the face of the federal government because they never relinquish anything they have control over. So, cheers for Trump on this.
Ron Paul, Jim, thank you for listening. More of your calls next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on the home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. And I'm Kevin Miller on your home for Fox News here in the Treasure Valley, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, we go in depth concerning the shutdown versus the border. Who's right, who's wrong? Don't forget State of the Union Watch Party. You're invited. Dave & Buster's Tuesday. Details coming up with me, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.